am Aleph Drasmin, currently on my 32nd year around the solar cycle.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Herstory TV and the Herstory podcast. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia this time. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another amazing young woman coming to us all the way from the US. Welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Infinite blessings. I am Aleph Drasmin, currently on my 32nd year around the solar cycle, and I'm currently located in Eugene, Oregon, Pacific Northwest of the United States. Whew, my story. I am the sum of all the choices I have made, regardless of the experiences I have been through. And I was asked earlier, what was the pivotal turning point of my journey? And I feel that would be a good place to begin, to summarize succinctly. A big turning point of my experience. Gosh, so many come to mind. Let me gather. It was about a few years ago, and I was at Mount Shasta. I was in the middle of a vision quest journey. And I remember sitting there. It was freezing cold. The snows were starting to come in, and I hadn't really packed for the weather. But I'm sitting there at the top of this mountain, meditating, freezing cold all around me. I went into this deep trance. And then when I opened my eyes, it had turned night and the moon was rising, and I was watching the moon rise. And in that single moment, I felt within me this peace and this connection with life all around me. I had been meditating for a few years. I'd been fasting, I'd been seeking. And in that moment, I felt this peace, this serenity. And I knew that I wanted to share that peace with the people in my life, the people that I connected with, the people that I would speak to. And so I started reflecting on my experiences of what I had been through as a child. I have been through a mixture of abuse, as many of us have. I have been through a mixture of difficulties and challenges, as many of us have. And it wasn't until a few months after this experience that things really started clicking into place. Because after this experience, I went and stayed with a friend who has a son on the autism spectrum. And as I was living there with this family and just observing this family and this little boy, and then eventually going with him to his therapy, I recognized myself in him. And I realized that there are a lot of beings out there who are highly misunderstood and highly mislabeled, because there's not a proper education system. There's not a unified place of resources and knowledge to, especially to explore different ways of neural pathways. And so I started gathering the sum of my experiences. I started looking at what I had learned in pre-med school. I started looking at what I had learned in my spiritual practices. And I started developing courses and classes and sessions to break through the root of trauma so that people could experience that peace of being held by the earth, of being held by life, of not being weighed down by the circumstance of experience or the challenges that one may be navigating in everyday life. So it's a culmination of experiences that was a turning point, but that's the one that highlights for me in this present now. It's just sitting there at the top of the mountain and remembering the words of my teachers who said, the practice is not in the mountains, but it is in the cities. When we take our peace, when we take our clarity, when we take our enlightenment from the mountaintops, and we take it to the cities, we take it to our homes, we take it to our relationships, and we really start healing that connection through connection.
Wow, what an amazing journey you've been on. Now, a lot of people go through childhood trauma and get stuck in what has happened in the past. It sounds to me like you have found a very magical way of transcending that, of transmuting the pain, the trauma you went through, and really turning it into gold. I know that I have heard your story before, and some of our listeners might not have been at our last online summit to hear you speak. So share with us a little bit about your experiences, how you've managed to frame them and transmute them into what is your life right now.
Yes, so to summarize, for those who have not heard before, as a child, I went through extensive verbal, mental, physical, and emotional abuse. And for over a decade, how do I phrase this, was forced, for lack of a better word, forced into these auctions, these child sex slave ring auctions. And it was all done in the name of God, in the name of Jesus. It was all done in the name of, this is your purpose as a woman, to be the vessel of purification for the sins of man. And what kept me going was, for many years, my little brother. I said yes because they threatened his life, and I loved him. I raised him as a son. And the threats to his life, more than anything, kept me silent, kept me obedient, kept me submissive. And then when they finally were done with me in my late teens, I had a very bad car accident. It scarred my face. And there were some other things that happened. I got too old, basically, for them to use me anymore. They still followed me around, but they had, at that point, if someone studies enough psychology and developmental psychology, they had done the work. So the patterns and the fear was rooted in, and that stayed within me. And it wasn't until I went to college and I studied psychology and I studied sociology and I studied biology that I started understanding how the body works and how it traps and holds memory. And that was what helped me start breaking free, by really studying. Okay, why is this stuck within me? Why can't I break out of it even though I know better? Studying resources, knowledge, information, going after that, a desire to become a healer that really helped heal others, not a healer who was deflecting from my own traumas. Studying allowed me to really understand how trauma roots in the body and break free of that. And even with that, things had been so rooted in. After spending years of study, then I started integrating spirituality and meditation into it. And then after I had a year of that, I started slowly incorporating psychedelics under supervised use to start helping me rewrite neurons. I went to different conferences and talked to many experts in the field and really started doing a complete reset, a nervous reset within myself of one step at a time, shedding the layers, and a lot of crying. A lot of crying, a lot of cutting people out of my life, a lot of getting rid of things that people had given me that had that emotional energy attached to it. And then when my brother passed, that was the big shift earlier last month or something, where, okay, now it's time for that story to come out. And it has been a catalyst of release. My brother's passing has been a catalyst of, okay, I kept quiet because I wanted to preserve his innocence. And now that he's gone, I don't have a reason to be silent anymore. And I'm realizing that my silence actually created a lot of suffering.
Wow. For such a young woman, you have certainly lived many, many lives. I know that a lot of women experience generational trauma. It goes way beyond your time your mother's time, your grandmother's time. Are there any processes, methods, ways that women can use to release themselves from their pasts?
The first thing that comes to mind is movement. Movement has saved my life. Energy is emotion is energy in motion. So when we get stuck in the emotion, and especially as females, we hold a lot of energy. We hold a lot in our womb space, in our mitochondrial DNA. I mean, this is pure science we're talking here. Movement is a very, very effective key in the moment to just get out of that stuckness of just like start moving, start shaking, start just shifting the energy. There's been a lot of oppression because we've been fit and pushed into these little boxes. Don't sing too loud, don't express yourself too much, don't move this way, don't walk this way. And so what I would advise to a woman is or anybody's going through an experience, is just start moving. Moving will start shifting the energy out of its stuck place. And movement has been a big foundation practice. Normally I would say breath. But even with breath, sometimes it's like, okay, I'm breathing, it's not going anywhere. Movement is a big key.
Wow. So do you practice any particular type of movement? Is it yoga? Is it dance? What kind of movement have you used for yourself?
It's interesting that you asked that, because I actually practice a type of chi flow, which is I start in stillness and a neutral breath. And then I allow the breath to show me where my body needs to move. And then I spin, going from east, going clockwise back to east. And I stop at each direction, check my energy field up to bottom. So a chi flow is a combination of like yin yoga and qigong and restorative meditation breathwork flow. So it combines like stillness, and then you go into movement and start moving the body, and then you end in stillness to integrate that. And it is a practice I've developed and do daily, sometimes several times a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if you were to go back to that younger you, that young woman who was going through this traumatic experience, and give her some advice, what 3 nuggets of wisdom would you give her based on what life has taught you?
You are more powerful than you realize. You are not defined by the world. And this is temporary. You signed up for it, and it's temporary. Because
Nice.
truly, when I look back on my experiences, I am grateful that I went through them, because if I didn't go through them, someone else would have, and they might not have come out in the way that I did. And so I'm grateful that I went through them. And I hope that my experience and my sharing of these experiences in my journey begins to really break this oppressive that's been infecting many generations. I pray that by my strength in overcoming this within myself sends out that energetic ripple and sends out that strength as well to others who are going through this. And I truly believe that we sign up for the lives that we come into. And I would tell her that. Hey, you signed up for this, and it's temporary. It's going to pass. You got this. You're so much stronger than you know. Give yourself more credit. Yeah.
How did you get to this point, this knowing, this calm and stillness? Every time I talk to you, before you even open your mouth and say anything, I can feel within myself a stillness. It's the only way I can describe it. How did you go down the path of spirituality to get to where you are right now?
I went insane. I went fully insane. I just surrendered to it. I remember a therapist asking me once, "What is your worst fear?" And I looked at her and I said, "My worst fear is that I will be on the streets without a home, without a family, without any friends." And she said, "Go into it." And so I did. I sold I got rid of my apartment. I went, on my vision quest journey, and I just surrendered to that fear. I just surrendered to it. I allowed it to envelop me, and I pushed myself to just sit there in that discomfort for as long as I needed until the discomfort went away. So basically just sitting in the eye of the storm. And it's truly a practice. Every day I continue with breath. I'm still navigating, layers of anger, subconscious layers that come out, little splinters that come out, and it comes out. And it's truly a committed daily devotional practice to just choose peace.
It's interesting. They say you have to feel the fear and do it anyway. A lot of times we resist these feelings, and the more we push against them, the more they come. But you're right. It is like sitting in the middle of a storm and letting it pass, right? And now nothing can faze you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and that's the other thing. It's like, once you're broken, you can't be broken again. You are now, and scar tissue is stronger. Scar tissue is stronger than tissue, So again, it comes back to that. Okay, I've been through some of the worst shit in my life. What else you got? It's like, okay, I've been through some dark storms, and I've sat through it, and I've faced it, and I've looked at it, and I've said, okay, I'm still standing.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think I think of the whole interview, that's probably the juiciest piece of knowledge that you've shared, because a lot of times we push against what's coming, and it's easier to let go and not resist it, and then it just washes over you and you come out on the other side reborn.
Easier, right? It's easier.
In quotes.
Easier to
So what is on the horizon for you? What is your future looking like? Where do you see your life going from this point on?
So I'm in the process of expanding my online platform, the Aho platform, into a physical location. And my vision is to have at least a few years to really create a good foundation with the land and with the home on the land and with the teachers who choose to come and participate and be a part of this land. And where I see myself going is really creating an education system that teaches these things, these basic ways of understanding of this is how the body develops, and this is how the brain develops, and these are key pivotal developmental points of our birthing process, and really redefining our current education system into one that is more inclusive of spirituality and emotional intelligence.
Oh, I love that. Wow, what a beautiful way to finish off our interview. Really excited with what you're doing. How can people find you? What is your website? I'll add it to this interview.
Yes, it's awakenholyoneNess.com.
Excellent. I'll definitely share that with the interview. Good luck on your journey. Please keep us updated, posted with the progress of where you're going. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. What a surreal way to start our Saturday morning here in Melbourne, Australia. Have a fantastic day, everybody, wherever you are in the world. Stay blessed. And thank you again for the beautiful interview.
Many blessings.
Thank you.